Hey everyone, Julian here, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to use compression. So what is compression? Compression is the act of taking a waveform's dynamic range and flattening it out to put the peaks closer to the low points. So to illustrate this, I have this kick in front of me, and as you can see, I'll make it bigger. As you can see, we have quite a bit of dynamic range here. We have these very high points. These are what we would call the peaks because they're the loudest points on the waveform. And then we have like some lower points, like over here and over here. And those are the low points I was talking about. So what a compressor is going to do is it's going to make these peaks quieter to match the low points, essentially. And it's going to bring up the low points a little bit. So to do this, you use a compressor, and there's a few different settings that you use, essentially. So there's the threshold, which sets the threshold for where the compression is going to kick in. I'm going to describe all of this in more detail later, of course. The ratio is going to tell you how much compression you're using. The attack is going to be how soon the compression kicks in, and then the release is how long it takes for the compression to stop. So with the threshold, I'll start with the threshold. And as you can see, what the threshold is going to do is you get this little thing here. It shows you like where the sound is hitting. And then as I bring this down, it's just going to tell it how much to, like, where it should start compressing it. So in this case, I have it up pretty high. It's probably only going to flatten out these higher things. Like if I freeze this and flatten it real quick. So you can see it's bringing up some of these lower ones a bit. And as a result, it's helping to flatten out the higher ones. If I bring this down way lower, you can hear that's like very compressed. And if I freeze that, you'll see it's going to make it even more kind of flat. So now you can see these lower ones have come down and it's flattening it quite a bit. You can also, fun fact, you can also see the transient quite prevalently here. And that's because of the attack time that we actually had going on this compressor, which I'm going to talk about more in a second. So the threshold is essentially setting like how low you're going to get on the waveform on the volume of the waveform or the dynamic range before it's going to start compressing it. What the ratio is like I said, it's the amount. So essentially, what's going to happen is with this, you have this ratio, and like for example, with 2 to 1, for every 2 dB or 2 decibels of input it gets, it's going to output 1 decibel. And as you go up, that keeps, that keeps going. For every 3 dB now, it's going to output 1. For every 4 decibels now, it's going to output 1, and just so on and so forth. And so this, again, just allows you to sort of set the intensity of the compression. I'll show you. If I do 2 to 1, it's pretty intense. But if I go up to let's do 9 to 1, it's even more intense. And again, that's because for every 9 decibels of input, it's outputting 1 as opposed to every 2. And a fun fact, if you turn this up to infinity, it's actually just a limiter at this point. So yeah, the attack, like I said, is going to set how soon the effect kicks in. So I can actually demonstrate this pretty well, because if you listen here, you can hear what's called the transient very strongly at the beginning. I'll get rid of this other stuff so you can hear it. And that is because the compression isn't kicking in yet, because this is set to 2 milliseconds. If I turn this down a bunch, now you can hear that transient gets kind of buried a little bit more. And it's going down. And I can show you this with freezing and flattening too. So here's with a high attack, so it takes a little bit for the compression to kick in. And you can see that transient is very strong. And if I turn the attack down so it's very short, now you'll see when I freeze this and flatten it. Okay, so now you can see that the transient is quite a bit smaller, especially compared to the rest of the waveform. So attack is pretty important because if you're working with a kick or something like this, you want to play with the attack because you could have a really strong transient and then still flatten out the rest of this stuff without messing up that. So the release is similar to the attack. It's another time-based effect, and that's basically just going to set how long the compression is going to go on for. So with a sound like this, it's pretty easy to hear. If I turn it all the way down, and I'll turn the attack down a bit, you can hear it's just very quick. It's mostly just in that little mid area of this, and that's why you're hearing such a loud bump in there. I'll freeze it and flatten it and show you. So you can see it's mostly just happening around here. And you can hear that quite a bit. If I turn it up a bunch, you'll see it'll be a bit smoother. So now, like I said, it's a bit smoother because it's just compressing the whole kick pretty much, since this kick is a very short sound. So yeah, you can see now the whole thing is compressed. So that's really how the release and the attack work. Again, they just kind of allow you to work with the sound and work with the compression and give it a little bit more kind of editability, I guess. So that's going to be it for today, guys. I just wanted to quickly explain how a compressor works and make a video like this. Make sure to let me know what you thought of this video in the comments, and like this video and subscribe. Make sure to also check out my sample packs. It's the first link in the description. You can't miss it. And I'll see you guys again tomorrow with another tutorial.